Alright, so I'm just sitting in my car right now. I was thinking about a few things. I have to go somewhere, so I've driven up here. And I was kind of just thinking on the way I should make another video. So I'm just this is the video. Okay. So the topic is, my descent into madness essentially, and how it happened, what happened to me, and how do I cope? And the answer to that is I don't cope. I don't cope at all. And I kind of, throughout all my copes, I just stopped because it just wasn't helping. It was just putting me further and further, not in denial, but kind of just away from the ability to actually fix the problem. So, might as well start off saying that I had a very, weird upbringing. I wouldn't say it was, bad. Maybe it was. But it was just very, very different from a lot of people. I grew up in a kind of religious, fanatical, anti-male house where I was essentially like a prisoner for many years. The happiest parts of my childhood was when I was actually not at home, when I was at friends' houses or like my cousin's house or something like that. Just essentially when I wasn't home. But basically, I I didn't understand how, let's say, like suboptimal it was until I probably turned about 22. Then I started to see really, because, like the brain obviously develops more, until you're an adult, and even well into your adult, I think 26. But when I was 22, I really started to kind of I don't know, I just realized that things weren't right for me in the way I even perceived a lot of things. So So I recently started actually talking to someone, like not a therapist, just like the counselor, or whatever, therapist, whatever, just about like some of the things. And like I never really told anyone a few of the things I'm kind of gonna say now, but they kind of really just contributed to my mental downfall. And it was gradual, I'll say, but when it actually like happened, it was almost like an instant, like a complete break. So when I was about 16, 17, I started to hear, I don't know if it was like whispers or whatever, and I had very, very bad dreams all throughout my teens, like very horrible dreams. And a few people know I've told a few people about some of the dreams I've had, but it wasn't like it's just a dream that you forget. Like these dreams kind of have always stuck with me, and they're very abstract and obscure and kind of just not normal. Like I know what a normal dream is, I know what a nightmare is, but these were like heavy nightmares, heavy nightmares that I couldn't shake in when I was conscious, essentially. So I started to really kind of begin the deterioration process around then, and I always kind of kept that to myself, that I heard things and seen like little flashes of things, just kind of like in passing. Crazy thing, like it's hard to explain, but if you have something similar, I'm talking about. It's like shimmering light confuses my brain or something that I can't cope, I can't process it properly. But what happened was, for since I was about, I would say, yeah, definitely about 16, 17, I became a habitual consumer of, marijuana. And that didn't do me any favors, really. But that was essentially my only coping mechanism. Because for me, when I was high, I was kind of I didn't think about the bullshit I went through. I was just baked, and I was actually more sociable to be around. Although obviously I just wanted to keep getting high, but I was able to interact better. I could, kind of have a laugh with people and just relax and just be sort of normal. Now, since I moved away from my country, a lot of these things really started to elevate themselves. I started to really kind of like, it started to upset me because it was happening more and more often. It was hindering my sociability, shall we say. You know, I was afraid of like being cracked in public, really. But oh, I was just cracking. I was just very slowly, just, you know, I was unraveling. My mind was unraveling. But what really just blew the fucking doors off its hinges was 2 years ago. Now I intended to take 8 grams of shrooms or psilocybin, but I didn't. However it was done, I didn't measure it right, so I ended up taking more than 8. I probably did like 12 grams of mushrooms. And for someone who doesn't, like, I'm not a big, I don't agree really with drugs. I would take something natural, I suppose, just to experience it, you know, once. And I decided, you know, 2 years ago, because things started really getting bad and I was becoming more socially withdrawn. So I thought to myself, you know, I had like no care anymore, really. I didn't give a shit. So, you know, this was like saying I didn't care about doing, and I just wanted to try it. Um, because I just needed to do it, right? So the way I did it was, I even did it at a level where the actual element that makes you high and hallucinate was amplified greatly, because the way I took it was, I ground up the mushroom really fine, and I had it with lemon juice, and I let it sit in the lemon juice, and that would essentially pre-digest or bring it out and amplify it within the lemon juice, and then you would just drink that, and it was disgusting. It would make you want to throw up, but essentially that would be the optimal way of doing it. And I did that, and this girl that was kind of living with me at the time, she was kind of like looking over me, you know, while this was happening. But so I explained how it happened, and I'll never forget this for as long as I live. I essentially ingested the substance, and I knew, because essentially it's a kind of poison that breaks down in your liver, and that's what activates the hallucinogen, and that's what gets you in that state. And because I ingested so much, I was so nauseous, I felt so sick. I felt like throwing up, but I couldn't throw up. And I actually just kind of like lay down on the sofa, the couch, whatever. And I sent her out to go get cigarettes, because I was smoking cigarettes at the time. And I could tell she was kind of like worried. But see, when she left, that's when it happened, man. It was like, oh, it felt like I just like I was I was like an alien. I was like a completely different person. As my body was like glue, like jello. Weird. But and when I say like the door to the true like hallucinations, it wasn't opened. It was essentially, the door was blown off its hinges, and there was no way of remedying it. I essentially opened the barrier for myself unintentionally, in a way. Maybe subconsciously I knew maybe this could happen, and at the time I didn't care. But it happened. I essentially was seeing, oh my, crazy things. I was seeing, like, one thing I was saying particularly was light was so intense. Like, I would look outside in the street lamp, the shining down, it was like a knife cutting through the dark. Like, it was that pronounced, lights and things, and it was like my entire body was like split apart, and like, and I was so consciously aware of each little minuscule part of my body, like from, you know, like a little piece of my skin to like the nail bed to like my liver. I was like, it's almost like each thing had its own brain. But it continued to amplify to the point where I actually couldn't discern between reality and fantasy, because I didn't know at the time. But so she had come back, and then my friend came also, because he was worried that I'd obviously fucked it up, which I actually had. And they were kind of just looking over me and keeping me like safe. And I do remember that we were sitting outside, and I swear it felt like I was melting into the floor. Like I was melting into the floor, man. and it was so scary, dude. I was like in a sense of extreme panic. Like I've experienced like paranoia from smoking weed, but this was beyond that. This was not like a drug thing. Like many things were revealed to me at once, like at the drop of the hat. It was actually too much that I actually I will say that that was the day when I truly had no more control over the way my brain interacted with my mind, because the brain and the mind are separate. But yeah, so for a few days after that, I was very happy. I was actually like super social, and I was like I was a totally different person, man. Like yeah, she would have told you, like my friend could have told you, I was just like mystically altered would be the the way I would describe it. But at the same time, the things that I was experiencing like subtly in my youth now were things I couldn't discern. I couldn't tell when things were happening and when they weren't happening. And I was like waking up in the morning looking outside, and I swear on my life, it felt like the sky was like falling on me. Not like actually falling, but like the light itself was, I was like seeing past the lights, and it was like coming closer and closer to my vision, and almost like so close to me that like my nose was touching the sky. That's just how it felt like. And it was like terrifying, man. It was terrifying, dude. And I was like seeing crane, like a construction crane outside my house, even though there was nothing there. And I was like telling people things, and they're like, no, dude, that never happened. Or, you must have just thought about that. And I was just like, so after a while, I just was like, no, I have to just like, you know, I fucked myself in a way. I had to fix this problem. And the only way I knew, because one thing about me is, as a child, I was very kind of, I was a problem kid. But since I turned about maybe 24, I decided that I wouldn't subject myself onto others, you know. I can respect that I'm very different, very antisocial, and I respect another person's right not to have someone like me around for their own health, you know. So I kind of withdrew from a lot of things, a lot of people, and it just got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse, and it got so bad that I couldn't even recognize myself. I was like someone else living in my body. Now things have gotten all right now. I'm on medication, an antipsychotic medication, which honestly, if I wasn't taking that, I'd be dead. I'd be dead right now, because I would have done something fucking stupid, like jumped off a building or whatever. And in fact, this is another topic, but I had a suicide attempt, but I wasn't actually like consciously trying to kill myself. I was in a kind of panic. Like I have these like dark moods, these very dark moods, and I just turn on people, like that, like a drop of the hat, just you know, and it can be anyone, and it's happened many times actually, and that's also part of the reason why I like decided, I just have to kind of stay away. I'm being very open in this video, but one of the ways I'm actually trying to cope, because my old copes would have been, like I say, marijuana, or I would essentially be I'm still obsessed with like history and stories of old kings, stuff like that. Even now, like for fun, I just read stuff like that. But all the copes that were like present, let's say, for most of my life, I kind of just dropped them. Like I stopped playing games, really. Like I'll play games, but in the way I used to be, the game was like all encompassing. Like I wanted to know everything. I wanted to like, and essentially break it down and understand the very inner workings of things, kind of thing. Like I kind of just left that, because I was taking that energy away from a kind of inward reflection, which I should have been doing. So I stopped all that. I stopped the weed, you know. And I've smoked a few times with a few friends or whatever, but I've never been drawn how I was, when I was younger. Because like that was my primary way of dealing with what I was experiencing growing up. But yeah, like this now is essentially my new cope, talking and ranting and telling people my experience. And I'll be honest, it's honestly kind of the only thing that's keeping me going because, I'm not lonely because like people don't like me. Like, a lot of people do kind of and have said they enjoy spending time with me, and obviously like it's people bullshit, but like I can tell that, when I'm actually like sociable, I'm all right, I'm fine. It's just that I've like consumed myself in a kind of like, I've like locked myself away in my own brain, and it just it escalated, sorry, it accelerated my demise, really. And yeah, so I'm receiving help now for this, but realistically, I should have been receiving help for these things a long time ago. But I felt growing up that I couldn't talk to no one about certain things, and like without really talking about it, I'll say my parents didn't really give me any care, any social kind of care. I was always just kind of, like I felt like I was just property, like I'm just a tool for your social life or whatever, or I'm just there so that you can, like just, like I was like a pet, not like a child, and I never had like a father who spent time with me, or any real like people that could have showed me how to cope or what to do or how not to behave. Never really had that, you know. So I latched on to things, but yeah, like that was another cope. That was another kind of cope, like just trying to find something else to learn from. But now I've kind of just, I'm at a level where I've accepted my situation. Like I have thoroughly accepted it, A lot of it was brought on by myself, but at the same time, I never had the tools to be able to navigate, let's say, the social interactions, or how to deal with when I was in a kind of like dark place. I never had the ability, and I was always, when I was in these moments, the people who should have actually kind of helped me, they kind of just, like, you just go sit in your room, So I was always like, most of my childhood I was just in my room, if I was not at friends' houses, or if I was not out away from the house, I was just in my room, just locked away in my room, you know uh like, and I wasn't allowed to like play any games, watching movies. So I was essentially just stuck with like kid stuff well up into my teens, So when I first started encountering like mature topics, whatever, I really like latched onto a lot of these things. But now I've kind of just become my own like man in the way I deal with things, I don't seek no one's approval for the way I want to conduct myself. Yet again, I still hold that I don't subject myself onto no one, you know. I even tell people when they want to be my friend, I say, look, man, like I'm fucking, I'm not sick, but I'm not well. If you can just handle that, sometimes I'm like weird, we can be friends, dude. Like that's fine, And I'll never like come to you and try and waste your time for my bullshit. Like that is over, That was another cope, you know. And yeah, like this, what I'm doing now, obviously, just these are just rants, man. I'm just ranting. Like I really don't care who listens to this. I don't care who, if people disagree or like they think I'm a problem. Like, it's all opinions and stuff, and it's really the perception of one's reality. Like my perception of my reality is so different, like so very, very, very different. you know. I'll talk about another cope as well quickly. I was kind of like I was in a form of ideological cope as well, because obviously the problems I was having weren't being addressed by people who should have addressed them. So, online obviously you can find your own communities, and I kind of like was listening to a lot of like stuff that is against the normal political climate. I don't know what to say here. But even because they were saying the things that was like, yeah, shit, man, that's exactly what I went through, like I feel like there's no future, there's no like any of this. So like I was sucked into that kind of stuff for a while as well. And that was like another cope. And yeah, like I'll proudly say now I have no real addictions. You know, I I'm starting to kind of enjoy like the small things. I can have a drink, I can have a smoke, I don't need to indulge, and I don't want to indulge, and even when it's presented, more often than not, I'm just like, no, I'm all right. And it's not because I'm afraid of going back, because that's a real possibility, but it's just that I'm just sick of the copes, man. I'm sick of the way I used to deal with things was just not the way I should have dealt with things. And like it just all stopped now. So I'm essentially like I'm not like a lot of people would say I'm a complete like psycho mad fuck. They might be correct, but it was not something I chose to be. I was almost relegated and pushed, not even through like maliciousness, but through like a kind of ignorance on their parts. Like, I don't really blame like the older generations for not knowing the things we know now, but it was like, like fuck, yeah, it was a lot of things that happened to me that they shouldn't have happened, you know, shouldn't have happened. And yeah, that's I'll leave it there because I gotta get going. But yeah, I'm gonna chop this up, edit it, and throw a thumbnail on, and I'll upload it soon. All right, thanks everyone.